আচ্ছা, next room, nmap. An in-depth look and scanning with nmap, a powerful network scanning tool. To access material, start messages, answer questions, join joining the room. Okay. Attacker machine, start game machine. Achha, to successfully complete this room, you will need to set up a virtual environment. This involves starting both your attacker box if you are not using your VPN and lab machines, ensuring you are equipped with the necessary tools and access the. আচ্ছা, আমরা হচ্ছে ভিপিএনটা কানেক্ট দিব। আমরা এখান থেকে যাই সিডি ডাউনলোডস ট্যাব 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 ls then cd thm vpn then sudo open vpn। এটা হচ্ছে এই thm এর ফাইলটা। আচ্ছা, এটা আমরা দেখে নিলাম, এলএস দিলে এটা দেখা যাবে। দেন হচ্ছে আমরা sudo দিয়ে ওপেন করবো, sudo open vpn পাসওয়ার্ড দিব। ভিপিএনটা কানেক্ট হয়েছে। দেন হচ্ছে আমরা স্টার্ট গাড়ি ইউনিট। আচ্ছা, ল্যাব মেশিন বার করি, স্টার্টিং ল্যাব স্টার্ট। This machine is scanning purpose only. You don't need to log into it or exploit anyone which is to gain access. If you are using the directly attacker box, then you will need to deploy the separately. Click the attacker box of the launch the machine. Also deploy the attached VM. আচ্ছা, আইপিতে দেখাবো। Introduction is a when it comes to hacking, knowledge power. The more knowledge you have about the target system or network, the more option you have available. This makes it impressive, imperative, and proper innovation is carried out before any exploration attempts are made. Say we have been given an IP or multiple IP addresses to perform a security audit on. Before we do anything else, we need to get an idea of the landscape we are attacking. What this means is that we need to establish which services are running on the targets. For example, perhaps one of them is running in a web server and another is acting as a Windows Active Directory domain. The first stage is establishing this map of the landscape is something called port scanning. When a computer runs a network service, it opens a networking construct called a port. To receive this connection, ports are necessary for making multiple network requests and having multiple services. For example, when you load several web pages at once in a web browser, the program must have some way of determining which lab is loading which web page. This is done by establishing connections to the remote web servers using different ports on a local machine. Equally, if you want a server to be able to run more one service, for example, perhaps you want a web server to run both HTTPS versions on the side, then you need some way to direct the traffic to the appropriate service. Once again, ports are the solution to these network connections are made between two ports, an open port listening on the server and a randomly selected port on your computer. Achha. Now open port. For example, when you connect a web page, your computer may open port at the connect to the server's port 443. Trygood.com port 443 HTTPS. আচ্ছা, আমার random port moriuri.com 443 আমার random port as the previous what happens when you connect to numerous website. cell. As a previous example, the diagram shows what happens when you connect two numerous websites at the same time. Your computer opens up a different high numbered port at random, which is uses for all its communications with the remote server. Every computer has a total percentage of 45 billion ports, but many of these are registered at standard ports. For example, HTTP websites can nearly allows to be found on port 80 of the server. HTTPS 443 Windows NetBIOS can be found. What is NetBIOS? NetBIOS is an acronym for Network Basics Input Output System. It provides services related to the session layer of the OSI model, allowing applications on separate computers to communicate over a local area network. Can be found on port 39 and SMB can be SMB. Server message block is communication protocol originally developed by Atom Berry and by shared access to file and to intersect nodes. A network of system running IBM OS2. It also provides an authenticated inter-process communication mechanism. Okay. Can be found in 445. It is important to note, however, that especially in a CTF setting, it is not unheard of for even these standard ports to be alerted, making it even more imperative that we perform appropriate enumeration on the target. If we don't know which of these ports a server has opened, then we don't have a hope of successfully attacking the target. Thus, it is crucial that we begin any attack with a port scan. This can be accomplished in a variety of ways, usually using a tool called nmap. Network Mapper is an open source tool used for network discovery and security auditing. It also assists the exploitation of network hosts and service, providing information about open ports, operating systems, and other details. Where was the nmap, which is focused on this room? Nmap can be used to perform any different kinds of scan port. The most common of these will be introduced upcoming task. However, the basic theory is these. Nmap will connect to each port of the target. In turn, depending on how the ports responds, it can be determined as being open, closed, or filtered, easily by firewall. A security tool, hardware and software that is used to filter network traffic by stopping outgoing incoming and outgoing traffic. Once we know which ports are open, we can then look at enumerating which services are running on each port, either manually or commonly using nmap. So why nmap? The short answer is currently the industry standard for a reason. No other port scanning tool comes close to matching its functionality, although some newcomers are now matching it for speed. It is an extremely powerful tool, made even more powerful by its scripting engine, which can be used to scan for vulnerabilities and in some cases even perform the exploit directly. Once again, these will be covered more in upcoming tasks. For now, it's important that you understand what port scanning is, why it is necessary, and the nmap is the tool of choice for any kind of initial enumeration. What networking constructs are used to direct traffic to the right application on a server? What network key type and network constructs are used to direct traffic to the right application on a server? সার্ভারে কি ধরনের নেটওয়ার্কের যে গঠন আছে এটা ইউজ হয় ডিরেক্ট ট্রাফিক দ্য রাইট অ্যাপ্লিকেশন অফ দ্য সার্ভার. Before we're doing the idea of landscape, what is means servers running on the target. We are taking what is means it is we need to establish which servers are running on the target. For example, perhaps server and writing intersecting between the stage establishing this map of landscape is something called port scanning. আচ্ছা আমরা ল্যান্ডস্কেপ করে নিই আগে। What networking constructs are used to direct traffic, right application server, landscape? না। Mm, the first stage is establishing this map unless with something called port scanning. When a computer has usually reference entering construct called port to receive the connection. One construct direct traffic to the right application on the server. One server. This is based on remote. Equally, if you want to server able to run more service, traffic service once import server association to network connections are made to ports in the listening server. What networking constructs are used to direct traffic to the right application ports? Networking construct হলো প্রথম রইল port. How many of these are available on any network enabled computer? How many of these are available in a network computer? এটা হচ্ছে 65,535। How many of these are considered well known? These are standard numbers mentioned in the task. Standard numbers. This is the website is 84,234। How many of these considered well known? Checked. How many of these are considered well known? Well known. These are standard numbers of mentioned in the task. Every computer has a total of ports. However, many of these are registered as standard ports. For example, HTTP can be found at the Windows at the SNB can be at the 80 ports. However, it's especially secure. It is not even these standard ports to be alerted, making it even more imperative that the 3 Every computer has total available ports. However, many of these are registered as standard ports. Research. How many of these are considered well known? These are the standard numbers mentioned in the task. If it which of these ports are open. How many of these are well known? Ah, well known. Actually, HTTPS দুইটা নেট বাস 3টা এসএমবি 4টা চারটেই তো দিল আরে FOUR 4ই তো search in Google how many well-known are substituting in the আচ্ছা তে টাস্ক দিল কে how many রিসার্চ বলতে নেই 1024 আমি 1000 লিখছিলাম কিন্তু এটা হবে 1024 nmap switches. Like most pen testing tool, nmap is run from the terminal. These are versions available for both Windows and Linux. For this room, we will assume that you are using Linux. Common line operating system based on Unix. There are multiple operating systems based on Unix. However, the switches should be identical and will be installed by default in Kali and try me at a box. আরে একটা ক্লিকে হুদায় আসবে we were at nmap very slow. No results found. There's my browser. Alternatively, glass theory. It's economy. Try me at a box outside. Nmap can access by typing nmap into the terminal line followed by some switches. We will be providing all you will need to for this help menu for nmap accessed by nmap or nmap man page man nmap for each answer include all parts of the switch unless otherwise specialized. This includes hyphen at the start. What is the first switch listed in the help menu for sign scan? More on this later. What is the first switch listed in the help menu for sign scan? What is the first switch listed? Acha man and table. into the VPN চলে আসি সায়েন্স কেন it was rapidly the output of this list scan targets the portal name কিরে তোর কি হলো the first switch listed in the help menu for a sign scan.
কি হয়েছে বাবা আম খাবা ওই সাথে কেউ কথা বলে না একটু কুলে কুলে উঠতা তুমি তো মনে হয় ঝাড় দিও বাবা আমু রে তিন সব মাস বানাই দিবা তোর বলে হয়ে যাবে আমু পকেটটা খালি পকেটে কি লাগবে বাবা
Types TCP science consumption will for most powerful scan for boot reasons. It will be done quickly scanning the boot. Hampered by files. Fast network not hampered. আচ্ছা minus SS. Which switch would you use for a UDP scan?
হেডফোনের মধ্যে লাগাই দেই
UDP scanner জন্য if you wanted to detect which operating system the target is running on, which switch would be used? The operating system জানার জন্য version is OS detection.
আরে দেখো
Namp provides a switch to detect the version of the scan. Version number উপরে দিকে আসছে
এত বড় হোক
MySSP. The default output provided by nmap often doesn't provide enough information for a pen tester. How would you increase the verbosity? Verbosity আমরা যদি minus p level level 1 is good, but verbosity level 2 is better. How would you set the verbosity level 2? It's highly advisable to always use at least these options. Uh, Verbosity level 2. Verbosity level 2. Set verbosity level, increase the verbosity level, causing the print more versions can open or increase the then if you may use it twice or for even greater velocity minus BB. A key velocity level directly for example minus B3. अच्छा minus BB दे दें velocity level 2. Okay. We should always save the output of our scans. This means that we only need to run the scan once. Reducing network traffic and thus change of detection, it gives us a reference to use when writing reports of fog lines. What switch would you use to save the end results? What switch would you use to save the nmap results in three major formats? What switch would you use to save the nmap results in three major formats? Formats. Mm, Output to all formats. As a convenes the microcity base names which switch should you use to save and replace one format? A very useful format. How would you save results in greepable format? Greepable format. Greepable format. OG. Sometimes the results we're getting just are not enough. If we don't care about how loud we are, we can enable aggressive mode. This is detection operating system detection and understanding. How do and covers five levels of timing template. These are essentially used to increase the speed scan runs. Be careful. How do you set the timing exercise? We can also choose the sports to scan. How do you tell and to only scan port 80? scan port 80, তাহলে minus how do you tell NF to scan port 1000 port 1000 1500 a very useful option that should not be ignored. How would you tell NF to scan all ports? How do you activate a script from the NF scripts library? Lots more on this later. How do you activate a script from NF scripting library? How do you activate all the scripts in the one category? Scripts. How do you activate all the scripts in the bhal category? Bhal category. Scripts. Scripts. I guess. Script A. Vulnerable scripts. Script space HTTP HTTP জায়গায় দেখি HTTP জায়গায় ভাল আচ্ছা script val না,
খেলাধুলা করবা ঝুলাই দিই
ভাল দিয়ে এইটা হতো। কিন্তু পাইতেছি না। ওই আর কি কাছাকাছি গেছিলাম। হ্যাঁ, কাছাকাছি গেছি। Script is equal to van পরে all পেলো না, all of the scripts in van, all দিলে তো আমার ই লাগবে জানি এই এইটা লাগবে, এটা তো all ডিটেকশন, এটা মেন অ্যান্সার। ওকে, 1 ঘন্টা বাড়াইলাম নাহলে সম্ভব না, চাইলে যাই। Overview. When port scanning, we can name there are three basic scan types. These are TCP scan, ST, sign, half-moon scan, as UDP scans. Additionally, there are several less common port scan types. Some of these would elevate in these details. There are TCP null scan, TCP find scan, TCP exam scan, XMAS. Most of three, with the exception of ADP scans, are used for very similar purposes, but the way that they work differ between every each scan. This means that whilst one of the first three scans are likely to be good in most situations, it's worth bearing in mind that other scan types exist. In terms of network scanning, we will look briefly at ICMP or ping scanning. Read the scan types instruction. Okay, TCP connect. What does TCP connect scan? TCP transfer protocol, control protocol is a connection management protocol requiring TCP three-way handshake to establish a connection. TCP provides reliable data transfer, flow control, and congestion control. High-level protocols such as HTTP, POP3, IMAP, NTP, and TCP. Use TCP connects. It's important that ছিঁড়া লাগবে এটা। To understand GPU connects minus ST, it's important that you are comfortable with the TCP three-way handshake. If the terms near you, then complete introductory networking as said. The server then acknowledge the packet with the TCP response containing the same flag. I mean, it's serial as well as the no acknowledge flag. Finally, your automate completes the handshake by sending a TCP request with the acknowledge flag set. Sign server, sign it, then acknowledge. Source IP 42 destination 141. Okay. সাইন, দেন আবার সাইন, সোর্সে সাইন করে, তারপরে আবার সার্ভার সাইন করে, দেন সোর্স আবার acknowledge করে. This is one of the fundamental principle of TCP/IP networking, but how does it relate on map? Well, as the name suggests, a TCP connect scan works by performing the three-way handshake with its target ports in turn. In other words, nmap tries to connect to a specific TCP port and determines whether the service is opened by the response received. For example, if a port is closed, ref states that if the connection doesn't exist, then a reset is sent to response to any incoming segment except the reset assigned segment that doesn't match an existing connection is rejected by this means. After networking to the curriculum, interact engineering task force request transmit protocol TCP, document that transmit protocol TCP is important. Uh, this is interesting. Okay. অনেক কিছু আছে তাই মেনটেন করে করতেছি. In other words, if nmap sends a TCP request with the send flag set to the close port, target server will respond with the TCP packet with the RST reset flag set by the response. Nmap can establish that the port is closed. Reset মানে then যদি অফ থাকে কেন বন্ধ করে. If however the request is sent to the open port, the target will respond with TCP packet with the sign attack acknowledge flag set. Nmap then marks this port is being open and completes the handshake by sending back TCP packet with acknowledgement. This is all well and good. However, there is a third possibility. What if the port is open but hidden behind the firewall? Many firewalls are configured to simply drop incoming packets. Nmap sends a TCP send request and receives nothing back. This indicates the port is being protected by a firewall and thus the port is not said to be hidden. That said, it is very easy to configure firewall to respond with a necessary packet programming IP table for instance, a simplification of one would be as follows. This can make it extremely difficult, if not possible, to get an accurate reading of the target. Which RFC defines the appropriate behavior for TCP protocol? Which RFC defines the appropriate behavior of the TCP protocol? Which RFC defines the appropriate behavior for the TCP protocol? The appropriate behavior. Repeat protocol. TCP is an important layer protocol that both or estimate number of changes have been made. TCP as it specified in RF, though this has only been documented from at
আমাদের দেখি ভিজে কোচি কোচি জামা
defines the appropriate behavior of the TCP protocol. আরেকটা digit আছে 4 digit. The TCP header control bits from remote have also been updated based on update but this is defines the behavior of TCP protocol. Which RFC was duplicated and replaced by new RFC? What is it? তো এটাই তো duplicated and replaced by newer RFC. Newer RFC তো এটাই update based on newer RFC এটা এটাই হওয়ার কথা বাট যেটা হয় নাই আমরা একটু গুগলে দেখতেই হবে কিছু করার নাই TCP behavior primarily defined as if which is currently the standard it is while replicating. উনিশশো একাশি উনিশশো একাশি করতে এলো দুশো তিরানব্বই 9293 ও এর নিজেই ওপেন হয়েছে এটা দিয়া আচ্ছা if a port is closed which flag should the server send back to the ওই যে RFC filtered না closed কিরে reset plate. Reset plate. Science scans, TCP scans, science scan. As with TCP scans, science scans are used to scan the TCP range of a target or targets. However, the two scan types work slightly differently. Science scans are sometimes referred to and option scans and stealth scans. Where TCP scans perform a code QR and with the target. Science scans transmit from the server. This prevents the server